From WHYY, it is Hittin season. Hey there, podcast pals. I'm John Stolnis from The Good Phight. You can follow me on X and Blue Sky at John Stolnis. Coming up, we're getting into the hot stove now, folks. The GM meetings are taking place in Las Vegas. We're not expecting a lot of moves to happen while GMs are meeting, but this is where a lot of the groundwork gets laid for free agent deals and trades and the like. So we'll talk about a couple of different things that we're hearing about the Phils as the GM meetings are underway. We're going to have a little bit of a discussion about Justin Crawford and some of the other prospects in the system who could be a part of some trade conversations. I want to talk about a Japanese player, not the big name that everybody's been talking about, who I think might be the best fit for the Phils. And apparently somebody threatened Bryce Harper's life for criticizing Rob Manfred or something like that. And we're going to get into that little nugget too here on this edition of the podcast. Plus, Justin has a great interview with Matt Albertson, a little Phillies history interview coming up a little bit later in the podcast. We'll talk to him about. So lots to get to here on this edition of Hittin Season. Here on the roundtable, Justin Klugh and Liz Roscher joining me. Justin Klugh from Baseball Prospectus. You can follow him on Blue Sky at Justin Klugh. And of course, author of the forthcoming book, The Summer of the, what is it, Justin? The Summer of the
Cheap Wieners.
Cheap Wieners,
Summer
that's
of
right.
The Cheap Wieners.
Summer of the Cheap Wieners. It flew right out of my head, but we're all excited about it.
Everyone except John.
I know that was coming.
Who secretly hates Justin and everything he does.
For writing
come
a
on.
book. Oh, I'm a loser.
It's not a secret.
No. I've been wearing that on my sleeve for a few months now, haven't I? Come on now. Give me some
I
credit.
had no idea, and maybe I'm late to the party, but I had no idea that Major League Baseball had a lethal enforcement squad that secretly carried out murders on behalf of MLB commissioner. But now that threat is out there and is public knowledge, I'm very eager to learn more about this topic. Yes, from the MLB commissioner's office, sanctioned murders.
We're going to talk about this a little bit later in the podcast, so stick to the edge of your seats for that one, kids. Liz Roscher from SABR. She's the editor of the Baseball Research Journal. Follow her on X and Blue Sky at Liz Roscher. Liz, how's the crocheting going?
Going well, thank you.
Good. I see
It
you
keeps
you have
my
like a
hands
hat,
busy
right? Did you make
and
that?
my mind free.
Okay. Well, got to have the mind free. That's always the first thing. Don't want to have to pay for your mind. That's a terrible thing. All right, let's get into the podcast here. And multiple reports, guys, indicate one of the first moves that could come this offseason is Kyle Schwarber coming off the board. And it seems the consensus is that he will return to Philadelphia. This is not a shocker. Todd Zalecki and others have reported that he's definitely going to be target number one for the Phillies here. And Justin, it sounds from different reporters that he is going to be one of the first free agents off the market. If only a lot of it is because the DH market is kind of limited. There's not a lot of teams out there looking for just a guy who can only be the designated hitter, but he's the best power hitter on the free agent market. And when you kind of put it in that context, it's like, well, yeah, the Phillies have to sign this guy. Like, they don't have any power. And the best power hitter on the market is a guy who's been on their team. So I don't know. When do you feel Kyle Schwarber is coming off the board? Could it be before Thanksgiving, a little bit after Thanksgiving? I think it's going to be kind of quick.
Feels like it'll be quick. Every report from a reputable or even in some cases disreputable source has been positive for these two to reunite, which makes it comical how much this has been talked about as though it's some kind of debate. But really, I think from formal sources, the word has only ever been, he wants to stay and they want to keep him. So if that's the case, if we're buying that at face value, then I imagine this goes kind of exactly how the Trey Turner signing went, which is, we want this guy. We have an opening for this guy. We're going to do this. Let's do it. Dombrowski doesn't like to beat around with stuff that he wants to just be able to check off his list. And if they're both as interested as we're told they are, then there's no reason for them to wait around because, there's a reason they want Kyle Schwarber back. I suppose he has his reasons for wanting to come back. And why mess with success? My question is more, given how much we've talked about the possibility of him not returning and what the Phillies do if he doesn't return, because again, he can just choose to do something else. That's also totally on the table. Would you feel more relief or, I don't want to say disappointment, just more like if he were to come back, would it be a total sense of relief? Because I stopped being able to consider it such like a straightforward, yeah, they'll just bring him back because of like all of the rumors and drama that's been stirred up for months over like, what do the Phillies do? What are the other things they can do if he doesn't come back? At this point, it's like, all right, no, he came back. Let's just imagine it just goes the way we think it will. He came back. He was always going to come back. It's really like, not a huge deal. You need him back. Your offense needs him. But that does then it's the first domino to fall among these many conversations and questions that we're saying the Phillies are going to have this offseason. Okay, now they don't have to go looking for a DH. Now there's one source of power that's locked in for the next couple of years. Like how that impacts other moves moving forward. Does that mean possibly even more to you than Schwarber coming back?
Let me throw it to you, Liz. What do you think?
I mean, do I think that it's important? What am I trying to rate here? That
No.
I feel.
Yeah, he's asking, how would you feel like if he came back? Would you feel disappointed?
I couldn't feel disappointed if he came back. No way. I'd be happy. They weren't signed to a contract, and as we know, until a guy is signed to a contract, he's not anywhere. We remember all that with Cliff Lee. When everyone thought he was absolutely going to the Yankees, and all of a sudden, oh, nope, he's going somewhere else entirely, and it's Philadelphia. So I'd be thrilled. It's one less thing the Phillies have to worry about, and everyone loves him, and he loves it there, and why not make everybody happy? Who could be unhappy with that?
Yeah, I mean, to answer your question, Justin, I certainly wouldn't be disappointed if they signed him. I think it makes logical sense. He's only getting better. I don't know how much longer that'll continue. I mean, I think this will probably be his high watermark 2025. I have a hard time believing he's probably going to be an MVP candidate the next few years. But for a team that is in desperate need of a home run threat, he's their biggest one, and there really isn't a close second at the moment. But that being said, if he doesn't re-sign, I think if you'd asked me in September, would I have been disappointed if he didn't re-sign? I would have said, absolutely. They've got to re-sign him. Blank check. Bring him back. They need him. He's so important to this team. And I do agree with those things, that he is important to this team and maybe the most important player on the team. He was the heartbeat of the team in 2025. But if they don't re-sign him, if something crazy happens, then he goes someplace else, depending on when in the offseason that decision is made, which is why I think it's going to happen sooner rather than later, the Phillies have a lot of different possibilities suddenly at their disposal. And it could open up some different doors for players to come in, reimagining the lineup. Now, I don't know if reimagining...
That's more what I'm talking about, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mean it's not really about relief versus disappointment. It's more about him coming back is obviously the big news is he's back. But the secondary news is, okay, we now have a small indication of what some of these other moves could be. Like now there is the first shred of evidence as to what this overall offseason plan is going to be. And how does that make you feel then? Because, it's the first thing we've had that's something like an answer to what has been a lot of just endless questions.
Yeah. I mean, I think it could make the offseason a little more fun just because you have some different possibilities out there. Does it make them better? And that's the big question. Is I don't know that if you swapped out Kyle Schwarber for Pete Alonso that the team is better. And it really just depends too. Like if you get rid of Kyle, or if Kyle Schwarber goes someplace else, if you bring in two slightly lesser tier players, is that better for a lineup than say having Kyle Schwarber and then kind of filling out with platoon pieces other places? And I don't know that that's what the Phillies plan is going to be. I'm just assuming that they're not going to break the bank with Kyle Schwarber, JT Realmuto, and another big bat in the middle of the lineup. We would all love to see that. I'm just not convinced that that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean that's the problem, is that in this whole we make it sound like this whole wide world of options out there, but then the second you start digging into prospective Phillies moves, the first thing you see are stop signs saying well, actually that market's very thin, or you're not going to find this guy for trade, or the Phillies don't have what they need to trade for the guy they need to replace that, which I think is kind of the conclusion we reached a couple of weeks ago, which was that look, yeah, you can get two guys to replace Kyle Schwarber, and maybe that maybe based on the guys you get, it improves your corner outfield defense a little bit, and maybe you get an overall better third baseman, and those two guys give you 15 home runs a year each. Okay, I mean, that's another way to do that, but I'm not sure if that's better than one guy who's hitting 50 some home runs And then, like, you also find other ways to improve the team on top of that guy. So our conclusion was basically, wouldn't it just be simpler to bring him back instead of doing all the tic-tac-toe you need to do to replace him?
Yeah. Like the let's get two guys to replace this one guy is a previous Phillies. That's a different Phillies iteration. That's much earlier. That time has passed. That's what the Orioles are doing now. You know, that's not the Phillies. The Phillies are, that's why they signed Schwarber to begin with. Let's sign the one guy that gives us the power we need, and then we have the power we need in this one dude. And it's kind of worked out that way.
Are the Orioles going to the GM meetings? I wasn't sure if they were going to just send like an empty chair with a little bobblehead in it.
Just a swivel chair swinging around. Yeah, that's what they've got going on. Todd Zlecki also reported that the Phillies are going to be focusing on their outfield at the GM meetings and this winter, which I think we all knew. Nick Castellanos is almost certainly not going to be back, and that could get resolved sooner rather than later too. We're already seeing teams non-tender guys.
Can you imagine if he came back at this point?
No,
I really can't. But
literally, no, not in any way.
It could happen. I mean, you know that he could come back, but
Lies.
I can't. At this point, that bridge seems like it's almost burned to the ground, and so it'd be real hard to crawl back over those hot coals. But it sounds like Castellanos is on his way out. Max Kepler certainly is on his way out. The Phillies only have 3 outfielders on their 40-man roster right now. Can you name those 3?
Brandon Marsh.
Yeah.
1.
Well, in the 40-man. Is Crawford on the 40-man?
No, he's not. Wilson count?
Weston Wilson is 2.
Wilson. That's right. We got to get down to that level. Come on, I know this.
He's having a fantastic winter league again.
Johan Rojas.
Johan Rojas is number 3.
I wasn't going to guess that.
I know. No one was going to guess Johan Rojas because he doesn't exist in our minds anymore. He's gone. But he's still around.
Rojas.
That's right. So clearly there are needs in the outfield. Now they almost certainly will add Justin Crawford to the 40-man roster when it comes time to do that. And I want to have a conversation about that because it sounds as though, based on what Dave Dombrowski has said, that Justin Crawford is going to be a big part of their plans here in 2025. It sounds like he has an inside track on a starting outfield job. Whether that's left field or center field or even could be right field, we don't know just yet. He played mostly corner outfield in the minors last year, but he did play some center outfield. By all accounts, he graded awfully in center field. I did hear a couple of possible explanations for that. Josh Norris of Baseball America was on the Phillies show podcast last week, and he had some interesting things to say about Justin Crawford. What I will say, and then I want to kind of open it up to the floor on this, is I think the Phillies have been sending some serious mixed messages about Justin Crawford so far. Like, they have refused to trade him at any point over the last couple of years. And then last year, even as Max Kepler struggled and they clearly needed help in the outfield, like the outfield up until like the last month or 2 of the season was a huge need, and yet he remained in AAA. So it seemed like they wanted to keep him. They valued him enough to keep him and not trade him. But they didn't value him enough to actually bring him up to the majors and let him try to help out at the big league level. And I mentioned that Norris on Baseball America was talking about Phillies prospects, and he talked about Crawford, not high at all on Justin Crawford. And I know he's not alone.
Ooh.
Specifically, his 59% ground ball rate last year. I'm talking about Crawford, not Josh Norris's ground ball rate. He doesn't have one. Among 270, I did some number. Yeah, I know.
It's lower.
Yeah, it was much lower.
Probably.
Much lower. I did some number crunching. Among 277 players with at least 300 plate appearances last year in the majors, that 59.4% ground ball rate by Justin Crawford, if he were to do that in the majors, would be tied for second highest with the Rays' Chandler Simpson, also another speedy singles hitter. Jake Mangum, also of the Rays, was first. Mangum hit 296 last year with a 330 on base and a 368 slugging percentage with a 95 weighted runs created. Simpson hit 295 with a 326 on base and a 345 slugging, almost the same numbers, with an 88 weighted runs created. And Jose Iglesias, who was right behind them at 58.2%, hit 229, 298, 294. That's a 73 weighted runs created. So again, these are not powerful offensive numbers. Norris noted that in the majors, scouting and coaching is a whole lot better. So a lot of these hard-hit ground balls that go for singles in the minors are going to be hit right at major league infielders. They're going to be positioned in, like, how often do we see that in the majors? That so many guys hit a rocket ground ball and it's right to a fielder. It's because fielders know where to position themselves based on what type of pitch the pitcher is going to throw, based on the count that they're throwing it in, based on the scouting reports and all that kind of stuff. Plus, they're just more athletic and they get to more balls than the guys in the minors do. So Crawford's going to see a drop. He can hit 330 in the minors. He's not going to hit that in the majors if he maintains this ground ball rate. And he noted that the only player in Major League Baseball, say like over the last 15 years, who has been a productive Major League player with that high of a ground ball rate was Kevin Kiermaier, and that's only because Kiermaier was an elite defensive center fielder. So, Justin, I know that this is kind of, we want Justin Crawford to fill this hole in the outfield that needs to be filled. But I don't know how this is going to work, because if he's going to play in the corner, he can't hit like that. He can't, he's not going to be productive enough unless they go with a star center fielder and a star right fielder offensively. Like there's not going to be enough offense in left field. And I don't know that he has the skills to play center field well. So what's your take on Justin Crawford and kind of your confidence level on the plan for Justin Crawford?
My softball team, we have 4 outfielders. We started employing this shallow player because a lot of the teams we would play in the league, they don't hit it very hard and far, but they were very good at blooping it right where outfielders were not. And so we started playing a guy that's like the shallow outfielder. If that was a job in Major League Baseball, that would be a perfect job for Justin Crawford. Unfortunately, we're stuck with the outfield roles that already exist. Baseball America said about Justin Crawford, they said he was one of the most productive hitters for average in the minor leagues since the Phillies drafted him in 2022. Baseball America also said on Justin Crawford, analysts rate him as one of the worst defensive center fielders in the minor leagues.
Man.
So the Phillies can't really decide anything with this guy. That was sort of the issue at the end of last season. Was like, what do they do? What's the plan? Their plan is, okay, let's watch him and see what he does, because it's on him now. We're at that stage of his career. He's got to figure out how to get the ball off the ground. He's got to figure out how to track fly balls more effectively. He's got to tap into this power by swinging earlier on the ball's approach to the plate. He's swinging too late. That's part of why he's getting these ground balls. And if he does that, he can start cracking it into the corner for extra bases. You mentioned J.J. Cooper. He's right about the ground ball rate. That's been at the center of every Justin Crawford scouting report for years, that he keeps the ball on the ground. He hit that point in 2025 in which the team knew what he could do. They're like, all right, this is the year it's coming off the ground. It didn't, they told him what he had to work on. He worked on it. It didn't really super improve. It doesn't mean he's not good. It just means, he's good in a way that might not translate to the major leagues. Baseball America also put out its prospect list at the end of the season. They have this fun little exercise as part of that where they project the 2029 starting lineup. So they go a couple, way too far into the future. And they do this exclusively with current players and prospects. They don't factor potential free agents in at all. The Phillies outfield in that scenario was Justin Crawford in left. And in center, the Phillies' top pick in 2024, Dante Nori, who is currently wrapping up in the Arizona Fall League. Nori, like Crawford, is a high-contact, high-speed player. He stole 52 bases this year. That is second in the Phillies organization in total. He uses his speed to, if you guys want to just go ahead and say it in unison with me, balance out faulty routes on fly balls. So where is the outfield power in the Phillies organization? Let's disregard the defensive aspect. Where is the outfield power?
They just signed Brian De La Cruz to a minor league contract. Is that what we're talking about? It's not, is it? Continue.
The answer is with my guy, Gabriel Rincones Jr., who they slot into right field in this scenario, famous for hitting a home run out of First Energy Stadium in Reading, well over the neighboring highway. Baseball America called him one of the best ball strikers in the organization, which I didn't know was a classification. Very glad that it is. There should be a Paul Owens Award style trophy given to that player, preferably with a picture of a guy like getting a baseball to the beans. But I think that's the difference there is that like those other two guys are good hitters. Rincones is good at hitting baseballs specifically. Now I'm bringing this up to say, can Rincones Jr. hit lefties? You better believe he can't. My point is that
would you like to hear the splits? Would you like to hear the splits?
No.
Well, I left him out on purpose, but why don't you go ahead?
Yes.
Against right-handers, he has had an 873 OPS last year. Against left-handers, a 323 OPS. He hit 107 with a 215 on base and a 107 slugging percentage. He had 0 extra base hits off of a left-handed pitcher last year.
Okay, but what I will say is those are cartoon numbers.
Yes.
Those are so low that they couldn't possibly stay that low. Even as he graduated to being just a normal bad hitter of lefties, it would not be that low.
No.
My overall point by mentioning all these guys is that almost none of the players who come out of any farm system, even exactly when they are supposed to, developmentally, are complete ball players. And all of them are in some way unequipped for the majors simply by way of never having played at that level. These prospects have a makeup, they have a scouting report, but for the Phillies, Crawford and a few of the others are swiftly reaching that point at which the last thing they need to do is prove whether everything they can do can be done at the highest level in the world. And that's the question, and only Crawford can really answer that. The Phillies' job here is to sit back and see what they see. To be in center field on opening day, Crawford doesn't need to have played well above average. He needs to have convinced the Phillies that he can play well above average in the future. We may see that in spring training, maybe. We may not see that. We may see his spring numbers and shrug, but then the Phillies see the promise they were looking for. Who knows? If the Phillies want Crawford to be the center of their outfield plans, well, I mean, he's got some changes to make, but it is, at this point, it's on him.
Yeah, Liz, I mean, I want to see him. I think it's time to see him, unless they're going to involve him in a trade for somebody else this winter, which they have been reluctant to do. In which case that means they're absolutely going to be adding outfielders from outside the organization. But I mean, they're doing that. They're going to have to do that anyway. But I don't know. I mean, what is your feeling on Justin Crawford and his future with the Phillies right now after hearing all of this?
I'm fascinated by the Phillies continually drafting the same player over and over. Two of them are even related. This is the same profile that J.P. Crawford was. And now his uncle, cousin, nephew, one of those, I think.
Great-grandfather, yeah.
Yeah, Justin Crawford is now fulfilling the same role. I remember there's reluctance to bring J.P. Crawford up because when they moved him to AAA, his numbers weren't as good as they thought they'd be. And everyone thought, they moved him up from AA to AAA too fast. And they brought him up to the majors, and he never lived up to the expectations they had. And it feels like it's one road that's been carved that now everyone is going down. If they want outfield power, they may have to draft it themselves, because I don't know where else they're going to get it, or where they're looking for it in their own organization, because they have intentionally not drafted guys like that high up.
If they want outfield power in the short term, you're going to have to trade for it, or you're going to have to sign it. It's not going to come out of the farm system right now. I will throw this in there, though. Crawford, people will forget, he went on a little bit of a power tear at the end of last season. He had 3 home runs in 5 games, and everyone was like, "Oh, okay, what do we got?" And then he collided with Otto Kemp in such a violent fashion that he lost teeth. That's going to play a role, I would say, in a guy's development.
Oh, will it?
When we talk about him not getting promoted, I saw Matt Winkelman kind of laid out earlier this week. Well, remember when that conversation was really hitting high gear, why isn't Justin Crawford up? When are they going to bring up Justin Crawford? It happened to be occurring in the same exact window in which Brandon Marsh was having a terrific second half in the outfield. Harrison Bader was here. He got locked into center field. And Max Kepler was in that 2 to 3 week window where he was actually hitting the ball and performing like a respectable major leaguer. So the Phillies were probably thinking, if there's any reason not to throw this kid into a playoff fray and be like, "Hey man, we really need you. We really need that bat to work." And I know you're new here and new to all of this, but this
Please help us.
Part of the plan is that you get here and it works. if we can avoid doing that, let's avoid doing that. And they avoided doing that. So
Yeah.
I think that's part of his story too.
And I know the argument is you're just asking Justin Crawford to hit ninth for you, and you're not expecting him to, be the straw that stirs the drink. And I think that's fine. I think those are fine expectations for him. I just, the issue is going to be if he's not playing center field, if he's playing left field and he's hitting number 9 for you, you're not going to find a lot of offense in center field. Even if you re-sign Harrison Bader, that's not a big bat. I mean, if he has another offensive season this year like he had last year, then yeah, you could maybe hit him 5th or 6th in this lineup. But
that can't be
that's
the
not
plan,
his profile either.
Yeah.
Can't be the plan.
Right. So that's my issue. It's like, yeah, you can hit Justin Crawford 9th, but then he's probably got to be your center fielder. And you need to go find a real bat for left field and or right field to hit in the middle of the lineup. Because you're not asking Justin Crawford to do that. And so that's my thinking with Crawford is like, and one of the things that was said about him with his defense in center field was they had him playing really shallow in the minors, and that a lot of the defensive metrics that were so negative on him were balls hit over his head that had a very high catch percentage under normal circumstances. And for whatever the reason, the Phillies had him playing, so they would probably move him back a little bit if he were in the majors, and some of the balls that would go over his head for doubles and triples or whatever, maybe he catches more of them if he's not playing so shallow. And that was one of the reasons why the metrics were so terrible on him in the minors last year. I don't know how much of that is true. Again, that was something that Josh Norris from Baseball America was saying, but it certainly sounds like we're going to get our first look in the spring and probably at the beginning of the season. And they got to get an answer on him. They got to figure out exactly what they have with him. And that's going to be part of the plan for the outfield this year. One of the other things that has been going around, we have seen a bunch of Japanese players announce that they're going to be posting. I mean, we have talked, Justin, I know you've been talking Munetaka Murakami quite a bit, the big left-handed slugger, 25-year-old free agent who's going to be posted. I'll tell you, there's another name that's floating around there, and the reason I like this guy maybe a little bit more is he's a right-handed power hitter. His name's Kazuma Okamoto. I think he's the Japanese free agent the Phillies should try to pursue. Again, I don't know that they're going to get a big-name Japanese player here. In about half a season last year in Japan, he was hurt for about half the year. He hit 15 home runs, hit 327, 598 slugging percentage. He has 30 or more home run seasons in his Japanese career. He's 29, but reports are that he plays the field well. He plays corner outfield, third base, and first base. I saw a clip of him in Japan hitting an opposite field 3-run home run off Roki Sasaki. I think it was 2 years ago.
I like that.
So there's stuff to like about that. This is my guy. This is my guy more than Murakami. I can't even get his name right. I don't know that I saw a stat too on Murakami that I think he was hitless against pitches over 95 miles an hour in his Japanese career. Now I don't know how often they see 95 over there, or 96, 97, but
Less.
It's less. Yep. It's less.
It's less.
There's
Thank
a lot
you.
of velocity going around baseball right now, so I don't know that I think he's a fit. I like this Okamoto guy, and I don't know anything about these guys, but just based on the surface level stuff, I think he's the best player who's ever lived.
Yeah, I'm really impressed that you were able to cast the guy I talked about aside and have graduated this player to having a full name instead of like the last show sheet, which just said that other Japanese dude in reference to this player. I
fleshed it out a little bit more.
Yeah. I'll say, that's quite a bit of reason. Hey, look, I certainly wouldn't be upset to see this player in a Phillies uniform either. He's homered, according to MLB Trade Rumors, he's homered every 16.2 plate appearances in an 8-year stretch. In an 8-year stretch.
Yeah.
Good.
That's strikeout rate. That's strikeout rate and walk rate are pretty dandy too. 17.7, 10.8. Slash line compares with Ohtani and Seiya Suzuki's NPB numbers as well. So, the question is exactly what John said. How does he fare against the much higher velocity he's going to face in Major League Baseball? It's a total question, and the Phillies need
Cross
answers
your fingers.
in the outfield. How many questions do you want to answer with questions this winter? You could also just try to trade for Seiya Suzuki, who we know can hit
I'd be
big
fine
league
with that.
velocity.
Yep.
But the market could also be set by all the first, third basemen out there, whether it's like guys who just play the one or can play both. Pete Alonso, Josh Naylor, Luis Arraez, Alex Bregman, Eugenio Suarez. West Coast teams like the Padres, Mariners, and Angels are all said to be interested in Okamoto as well. They always have the edge. You're going to owe his NPB team a fee on any deal you sign him to, which is 20% of the first $25 million, 17.5% of the next $25 million, 15% of any spending over $50 million. He's a good fit positionally and skill-wise. Adjustments are always going to be a question mark for Japanese players coming over to Major League Baseball, and he comes with some pricey fees. But, he's another guy with pros and cons for the Phillies who ultimately aren't a likely place for him to land anyway. But it's, like I was saying with Murakami, it would take a lot of work. It would take a big push for the Phillies to land a posted NPB player like this. Is this the winner they want to do that? Just like with Justin Crawford. In Justin Crawford's case, it's on him to prove he's the kind of player that they need him to be. And in this case, the Phillies have to decide, is this guy, worth scuttling other plans we might have, or is this guy the plan that it requires us to do something we've never done before, perhaps more strongly than we ever have?
Liz, what are your thoughts on this guy? Obviously you've been scouting him religiously, of course.
Religiously. I'll say I like him a lot better than Murakami. I think the Phillies have a lot of guys that profile a bit like Murakami, and they don't have a guy that profiles particularly close to is it Okamoto?
Mm-hmm.
So I think either one would be a positive development. They should go after both, and they should do it, full throat with, full heart, full throat.
Nope.
They shouldn't waste any time. Just do it. Put your best foot forward. This after what?
That phrase cannot possibly be full hearts, full throats, right?
It's not. I meant wholeheartedly with, full throat.
With all of your throat.
Okay.
Do it. Don't let your
What
throat
is
get in
what
the
is
way.
that say? It's the Friday Night Lights thing, right?
No, I wasn't trying to do the Friday Night Lights thing. I was
okay.
putting words together in the sentence.
All right, that's what I thought. I thought you were trying to do that. Then I was
Horse
like,
throat.
I don't know what
Yeah,
that is, but that cannot be it. All right, go ahead.
Yeah.
No, that definitely was not it, which is why I wasn't trying to do that.
I'm just trying to
those
imagine
are not in any way the words.
I'm trying to imagine the conversation in Japanese he's having in the limo on the way back to the hotel. Did you understand what they were saying about the throats?
No, and
I'm
I do not want to work here anymore.
I know. They're really
People are
fixated.
scaring me.
They're fixated on the throats, and we'll call the Angels. Yeah, we'll call the Angels. Well, this has got to be better. The Angels got to be better than this. Yeah.
They're called the Angels. It sounds like heavenly. What could possibly be the issue?
Nothing.
That's right. I kept saying there's no pressure to win here, so you'll be just relaxed. This is great. Yeah. Who needs all that pressure anyway? All right. So that's really kind of all we're hearing about on the hot stove right now as the GM meetings are kind of getting underway. Little snippets here and there, but the rumors haven't really kicked in just yet. Before we get to the interview you did with Matt Albertson, Justin, I want to talk real quickly about this thing we alluded to at the beginning of the show, and that is Bryce Harper apparently being approached by someone who works in the baseball front offices of MLB headquarters or whatever over his altercation that he had with Rob Manfred. For those of you who weren't aware that this happened over the summer, because we talked about it on the podcast, but maybe you didn't catch that one and you weren't paying close attention to the Phillies. Early this summer, Rob Manfred, he was visiting a number of different teams, and he visited the Phillies to talk about some labor issues, and the issue of a salary cap came up. And clearly this is something a number of the owners want. This is something the owners have wanted for a long time, was to institute a salary cap in baseball. The players and the players union are obviously vehemently against it. And it apparently got to a point where Bryce Harper told Rob Manfred, like, if you're going to talk about a salary cap, then you can get the bleep out of this clubhouse, or just told him to get out of the clubhouse. And Manfred, again, this is stuff that was leaked by Nick Castellanos to the press, who was in the meeting. And Manfred said, no, I'm not leaving. And apparently cooler heads had to prevail and people had to get calmed down and all this kind of stuff. It was a very contentious meeting in which Bryce Harper angrily confronted Rob Manfred and told him to get out of the clubhouse. Okay, that's the background. So I think this was last week. Sports agent Alan Walsh, household name, sports agent Alan Walsh, never heard of him, during an appearance on a podcast called Agent Provocateur, which absolutely sounds like a podcast you're going to want to listen to, said that a deputy threatened Harper after this incident. He said that he quoted this deputy as saying, "Don't ever say that again to the commissioner. Don't ever disrespect him again publicly like that. That's how people end up in a ditch." Alan Walsh is quoting an MLB deputy of Rob Manfred saying that this guy went up to Bryce Harper and said these words to him. Now, my question is, do we actually believe that this sentence was uttered by some lackey in Rob Manfred's office, that someone would go up to Bryce Harper, of all people, and tell him that people end up in a ditch who threaten Rob Manfred? I can be convinced either way. I'm also considering the source of this particular statement when it all comes down to it. Liz, let me throw it to you first. What do you did this threat actually take place, do you think?
I mean, I live in a world where if it didn't happen, I'm going to be real sad. And so I'm going to say it did happen, because how often is the commissioner yelled at or treated like that? Never.
I would think you can count it on one hand.
Yeah. And secondly, it sounds like, from the way that sentence was uttered, it sounds very much like the commissioner's office is mobbed up. And I also would like to believe that's true.
I don't doubt that somebody said something at all.
Oh, yeah.
I really hope that this verbatim is what was said. I can't stop laughing at the idea of, hey, if you're mean to Rob Manfred again, I will have you murdered by goons. Like, that came into your head, and you were like, I'm going to go say this to a professional baseball player. Can you imagine if Bryce Harper wound up dead in a ditch now? Can you imagine?
I know.
Like, that's a direct line to, like, what are you doing, man? You just blew your whole thing. I don't firmly believe or disbelieve that this did or didn't happen. Like I said, I think we might be looking at, like, whisper down the lane, paraphrasing, kind of like, oh man, can you believe that? I bet somebody said something, because, on the one hand, this is completely ridiculous, so over the top. Did he have Joe Pesci and his posse when he came into this locker room? Like, it's so idiotic.
Well, that's what it would have to be. Like, go ahead.
But they also proved, remember, part of this was like Mark DeRosa being like, you know what, I'm going to fix this situation, and going back in afterwards and being like, hey guys, like, let's all calm down. And then telling people later, wow, I didn't have as many friends in that room as I thought I would, which showed such a gross misunderstanding of the dynamic in a labor dispute between management and workers that put their side on the level as dumb enough to go back in there, stick a finger in a player's face, and tell him he's going to wind up in a ditch. That's why that is so incredibly possible to me. Any one of these toadies is dumb enough to threaten somebody with death for disrespecting the Major League Baseball commissioner. It also kind of just tells you how lost and, like you're saying, unused to this situation is this, like, team, is this department, are Manfred's underlings, that their reaction to being, like, criticized, to an argument breaking out over this kind of thing, is to be like, let's threaten him, like, with mob violence. Like, that's such a huge leap from like what is admittedly, if the story is true, a very strong reaction from Bryce Harper that, yes, I don't think the commissioner is very used to experiencing whatsoever. Yeah. But it just shows you how ill prepared they are for this dispute to get as nasty as it probably will, because if this was the response, I'm sorry, what are you, a child? Like, are you a child, or are you, like, going through a midlife crisis and watching Goodfellas every night? Like, grow up.
I would like to say first that this is technically what they went through was a captive audience meeting, which was, I believe, ruled illegal by the National Labor Relations Board. So they should file a grievance, but instead, Bryce Harper decided to yell at the commissioner, which I think is a much better idea. It's got to be more satisfying.
I want to get something out of the way. If MLB and Commissioner Manfred's office is kind of mobbed up, and there's some toughies, I just want coming from the pie. I just want the commissioner to know that I like you, and I think that you're doing an ace's job. Everything's on the level.
If telling Rob Manfred he sucks gets you thrown in a ditch, then you can find me in there with next to Bryce Harper.
The opinions of John Stolnis do not reflect the opinions of Hittin Season podcast.
I'm just kidding. I mean, here's the thing. I when I first heard this quote, I envisioned like some guy in a suit and tie gathering up the cojones to go up to Bryce
Shadow
Harper.
boxing in the bathroom, doing push-ups.
And just being like, so I hear you got upset with Rob Manfred. Well, let me tell you something, Mr. Harper, if that is your real name. Don't ever say that again to the commissioner. You hear me? Don't ever disrespect him publicly like that. That's how people end up in a ditch. You know, that was
he
how
like pounds his own hand with brass knuckles. It's like,
yeah. Ow, I hurt myself with the knuckles.
I broke my hand.
Vinny the Tuna gave me these, and these hurt.
You all saw it. He came at me with a knife.
You know who I bet it was? I bet it was Dan Halem, who is the deputy commissioner of baseball administration, appointed by Rob Manfred himself. That type of position feels like the exact type of toady position that would hold Rob Manfred up on a pedestal like a god, defending every single thing he says. And he would also think that because he has that position in baseball, could go up to Bryce Harper and say something like that, not understanding the vast difference in their expendability in this situation.
I don't think, realistically, I really don't think there's a chance that MLB would sanction a murder, a revenge murder.
No.
I'm saying this because, we spent a decent amount that like pushback, reprisal. Yeah, I think all of that in some form is on the table in much more, let's say, even more effective ways than we're even thinking. My question has now become, we spent a lot of the last couple of weeks talking about how Bryce Harper was like a little bit off. I had that same thought. And this exchange happened, and now there's this added component that may or may not have happened. And I don't know. I'm not exactly like connecting the dots completely here, but like, is there something to the idea that like, hey, the commissioner's office became decidedly anti-Bryce Harper? I'm not saying that like suddenly he's not getting calls. I just mean whatever capacity that could entail perhaps gets in a guy's head. And, a totally healthy player is suddenly not able to play as well. I don't know. You could see some kind of connection there.
You might be onto something because Rob Manfred used to be the head of the Office of Special Investigations at MLB, who ran invasive investigations into the people involved in Balco.
So where is this ditch located? Just so I know I can tell my family where to find me.
Yeah, it might be a good idea. Like, it's just something to remember that, like, he dug deep. And I was talking to my husband, I was talking to my husband over the weekend about this. And I'm like, how much could Bryce Harper really do? Like, he buys pictures of Jesus for his home. Like glowing from the background. Like, he's been under a microscope since he was 15. I don't think he's had the time to do anything that MLB could possibly dig up. He's got 4 kids right now. Yeah. That is a lot of children to have to also be, doing things that could ruin your career if discovered.
I don't even mean blackmail necessarily. I just mean the commissioner's
rattled,
office.
maybe.
Yeah, has some exactly. Yeah. Just a general. Who knows?
I had the same
but
thought.
Like, there's only a couple of times that Bryce Harper was like the main character of the Phillies this past season, and once was this time that we're talking about when there was an altercation with the commissioner in the locker room, and then again when we were having conversations about, hey, where's Bryce Harper been? I don't know.
Yeah, no, I literally, I had the same thought. I just, I'm glad you crystallized it there because we talked about how things did seem off this year with him a little bit, and that happened kind of the middle of the season. So we'll see. I don't know. I don't know how much of that story to believe. It is interesting. It is plausible. It's also entirely possible that super agent Alan Walsh made it up. I have no idea, but we'll probably never know all the details for sure. One quick thing before we head to the interview with Matt Albertson, Justin. The 2025 NL Manager of the Year vote has come in. Rob Thompson finishes in third, as we were expecting, but he did receive...
There we go. That's about right.
He did receive one first-place vote. Pat Murphy got 27 first-place votes and 2 second-place votes. Terry Francona got 2 first-place votes, 9 second-place votes, and Rob Thompson went 1, 7, and 6. Interestingly, Dave Roberts did not get a single vote for Manager of the Year of the Los Angeles
I think that's about right.
Dodgers. So, yeah. Clayton McCullough of the Marlins got 5 second-place votes and 7 third-place votes this year.
You could have said that name to me.
No, had no idea that was the name of the Marlins
I would have
manager.
not known who it was.
None.
Like, seriously,
Nope.
my apologies to that man, but no idea.
I mean, is he still the manager, or did he get fired for being too successful this year? I mean, that's what we really need to figure out. I don't know.
Yeah, seriously.
Yep. All right, Justin, tell us real quickly, set up this interview we got coming up here with Matt Albertson.
Absolutely. Matt Albertson and I had a conversation a couple months ago. He was talking about the differences between the Phillies ballpark, which went by a variety of names at this point in history, after it famously burned down, famously and somewhat mysteriously burned down in 1887. Any listeners to The Dirty Inning will be very familiar with this particular fire. It is probably our most requested thing to design a t-shirt around, and the potential culprit of that fire. But we talk about that a little bit, and we talk about the rebuilt stadium and how images indicate it is a drastically structurally different stadium than the one the Phillies played in 1887. And we kind of have this conversation about, like, did the Phillies just kind of play in a whole new other stadium in their history? It went by the same name and was considered the same place, but how much does a place need to change before it becomes an entirely different place? So that is what our conversation is about in the 1887 to early 1900s Phillies.
All right, so here we go.
The 4-year-old Phillies played their first 2 games of the 1887 season in New York, and in typical 1880s Phillies fashion, they lost them both. But this season would be a little different for the Phillies as they returned home to play the Giants in Philadelphia for their 3rd game of the season to a park at Broad and Lehigh that had just opened called Philadelphia Ballpark. Even more thrilling, the Phillies beat the Giants 15-9 in front of 18,000 fans. The largest crowd, it was said, to ever catch a ball game in the city of Philadelphia. The mayor was there, director of public safety was there, unironically, and what was deemed to be hundreds of ladies were in attendance as well, flabbergasting the male fingers that typed up the totals and recaps at the end of the day. It was said that the people had packed the carriages, the cars, trolleys, and trains, all headed to the ballpark, and that every road in the city now led to this stadium. If you missed the train, you could find a huckster to charge you a nickel for a ride. Maybe or maybe not leave you for dead outside of town. People hung off the sides and clung to the roofs of trolleys, and upon their arrival to the ballpark, they tumbled and dashed from the cars, scrambled out the windows, face-planted on the cement, all to not miss a single pitch of Phillies baseball in their new home. A young machinist named Patrick McGinnis was said to be the first to buy a ticket, having waited an unthinkable 90 minutes in line to do so. Another scene described a stampede of men, rich and poor, young and old, thundering down a hill to reach the ticket windows. A small boy was shoved aside and thoroughly stomped on, then popped back up immediately, smiling and laughing as the race continued. It was the home opener. Pain didn't exist. Nobody could get hurt. Not the city councilmen in attendance, the clergy, the contractors, or the almost trampled to death children. Despite the frothing madness with which everyone had shown up, this game went off as splendidly as possible. The Philadelphia Times read, "The best of order prevailed. The umpire, with 1 or 2 slight exceptions, was treated with the kindest consideration. The accommodations were perfect, the playing skillful, and the occasion altogether a most enjoyable one, without a single feature about it which would prevent any lady or gentleman from attending like contests in the future." In their new home, the Phillies enjoyed 8 seasons of mostly over 500 baseball. As the SABR write-up of this stadium by Seamus Kearney reads, the Phillies' home field would be populated by one of, if not the best, outfields of all time, in Hall of Famers Ed Delahanty, Sam Thompson, and Billy Hamilton. 2 other Hall of Famers teamed together in the late 1890s with Delahanty, Elmer Flick and Nap Lajoie. Fans witnessed a lustily hitting team that lacked effective pitching. But as we all know, it would still be a while before a Phillies team brought home the trophy, and the Baker Bowl would never see one. Partially because the Phillies' first World Series championship was still 85 years away, and partially because in 1894 this stadium went up in flames. The downfall of this place, other than the fire, was the wood with which it had been constructed. The home plate pavilion stood as proudly as a fortress, adorned with 5 towers, 2 on the sides, 1 in the middle, topped with flags that flapped in the wind against the bright blue afternoon sky on every perfect day for baseball. From each side extended coverage for those in the bleachers until those too petered out, leaving several sections for the peasants to be soaked and sunburnt. But it wasn't the sun that burned down the Baker Bowl, or as it was called then, Philadelphia Ballpark. The following section is taken from an episode of The Dirty Inning, our Phillies podcast over on the Hittin Season Patreon, patreon.com/hittinseason. 1894, morning in Philadelphia. The mid-August heat had yet to fully set in as the Phillies were going about their morning practices with the aid of a southeasterly breeze. A pair of Phillies hurlers, both named Jack Taylor and Jack Fanning, caught sight of a flame that shot skyward above the stadium's pavilion and wrapped around one of the turrets. The same news story says that the fire was said to have originated in the ladies' toilet room. The 2 Jacks tried their best to put out the fire, but the breeze that had been so kindly moments before was causing it to spread with ease. And by 10:30 a.m., the first of 4 alarms had been raised. A stable nearby was let loose, and 340 panicking horses were driven down 16th Street. By the end of the blaze, the Phillies were standing on what was called a heap of ashes in the Enquirer's headline. A portion of the fence on the east and north sides was all that remained. $100,000 in damage had been accrued, with $70,000 of that falling to the Phillies, who had only, of course, $25,000 in insurance. As far as what caused it, well, some said that the Reading Railroad nearby may have shot a spark, but that was 200 feet away. Most assumed someone had tossed a lit cigarette, which happened a lot to ballparks back then, and there were commonly young boys smoking and climbing over the grandstands, even though they were often chased off. The property superintendent had been sweeping the grandstands with a young boy in his employ, who pointed out the flames, and they had tried to use extinguishers to put them out, but they didn't work. The players arrived with water buckets, but couldn't reach the fire. And after the fire department showed up, they had to deal with low water pressure from the nearby hydrants, so basically Philadelphia did itself no favors as far as putting this thing out and keeping this ballpark from burning down. The superintendent said later to the Enquirer, the only way a fire could originate in such a place would be spontaneous combustion or a mouse nibbling on a match that it had carried into the place. A few people were injured, including a 5-year-old boy who got knocked down by one of those horses, and the Phillies trainer lost his watch and street clothes. Darn it! Well, the Phillies were relocated to University of Penn Athletic Field and waited for the day their ballpark would reopen. Just as our guest has waited as patiently for me to finish that lengthy preamble, Matt Albertson, I'm joined now by a friend of the show, baseball historian, co-chair of the Philadelphia chapter of the Society for American Baseball Research, Matt Albertson. Thanks for joining us on Hittin Season, Matt.
Thanks a lot, Justin. That intro was great. It's really weird to be read to directly. You don't get that experience listening in the car or on your phone while you're washing the dishes. So this is a new experience. I appreciate it.
As a Phillies historian and listener to some of our other shows, I would imagine, yes, that is a special treat for possibly you specifically and no one else.
I don't even need Christmas gifts now.
A few months ago, you mentioned that histories often state that Baker Bowl was built in 1887. SABR's ballpark bio is among them. However, you wrote that I maintain that the 1895 ballpark is distinct from the 1887 ballpark, which burned down in 1884. Different designs, and the diamond location was even different. Now, I took this comment to mean that the Phillies had a secret other ballpark in their history, about which only you knew the truth and would surely be silenced by assassins in the days to come. But here you are, living and breathing, so I can only assume that instead of a terrible secret, what you were sharing was more of a curious piece of information from Phillies history. So let's straighten one thing out here. What was this place called? Because it went through several names.
Sure. So the ballpark, as originally constructed in 1887, was known as Philadelphia Ballpark. It burns down in 94, as you aptly described, and they rebuild it and open it again, a new ballpark, a different structure, in 1895 on the same spot. And they came up with a new name, Philadelphia Ballpark. That's a joke. It's the same name. Um, Eventually, the ballpark's name changes to National League Park in about 1903, 1904, to distinguish it from Columbia Avenue grounds, Columbia Park, where the Connie Max Athletics played. And then early 1920s, like 1922, 1923, a journalist who loved alliteration was trying to land on a nickname for National League Park, and he knocked it out of the park with Baker Bowl, and that's the name that has stuck. The Phillies never use Baker Bowl officially on tickets or on programs or in advertisements, and the newspapers always said, game at National League Park.
Yeah, the Orioles at least would number their parks when they'd be like, this is Oriole Park
Right.
2, Oriole Park 3, and in this case they were like, no, it's the same exact park, which kind of just it opens it up a little bit, because what you're trying to point out when you say, like, this looks like a different ballpark, it
Right.
literally is, but they called it the same thing. It just, I guess the question becomes, how much of this park has to change for it to just be a completely different place? I mean, I guess they never planned to change the name, because it's still going to be the Phillies home stadium, which
Yep.
is called this. But the interesting part is just, like you said, the how different it looked. So, like, can you give us a little more specifics as to structurally how this place was just a different ballpark than it originally had been?
Yeah, sure. So the ballpark we're talking about is situated at 15th, Huntington Street, Lehigh Avenue, and Broad Street. Eventually, they moved from Recreation Park, which housed the Phillies from 1883 to 1886. Phillies are getting better. They're getting more popular. 1886 Phillies, they're 71, 43, and 5. 623 winning percentage is still the third highest in team history. They've got some stars. They've got Charlie Ferguson. They've got Jim Fogarty. They've got George Wood. They've got some other guys that obviously are household names today, and everybody visits their plaques on the Wall of Fame. I kid, they're not there. But these are popular guys, okay? So they decide, you know what, we're gonna lease this land. They eventually purchase this land. It used to be like a brickyard, and a creek went through it, and there was a pond there. Obviously a place to put a baseball stadium. But when they do build it, it's designed by a Philadelphia architect and engineer named John J. Deary, who kind of comes out of nowhere. And he designs this in a Victorian style in 1886, 1887. It's got a grand pavilion behind home plate, which fans out along the baselines. And this pavilion is all wood. The exterior is brick, on the outside, on the street side, but the interior is all wood. It has on the ends of the pavilions, you have 2 belvederes or turrets on both sides, so 4 total. And then at the center, at the 15th and Huntington Street side, you have another huge belvedere, another turret, which is much taller. It's like 165 feet tall. So it's a pretty grand structure, and the nearby Philadelphia Athletics, from the American Association, they play at Athletic Park, which is a bit more pedestrian, a bit more typical of the earlier era, where you're just going to put up, a 2-story structure for a pavilion, fan out some bleachers, and here you go. We're just going to bring people in, and whatever happens, happens. The Phillies planned for this to be a home for a long time. The pavilion is then extended by some bleachers. Bleachers because there's no covering. Fans get bleached in the sun, so that's where we get the term bleachers from.
Oh, I never put that together.
Yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense when you hear it for the first time. But they seat about, I think it's about 13,000 people. 5,000 people in the pavilion itself, and it's 2-structure, it's 2-tier. And those turrets that I mentioned, those belvederes, they're functional. They have stairways going up in them. There's a story of a hot dog salesman hawking his hot dogs and ballpark scorecards there in the turrets as you got up onto the 2nd tier. So it's a pretty cool place. It's surrounded by wrought iron fencing. the right field wall, which is always a focus at Baker Bowl, is 12 feet tall. It's got a 12-foot tall like wire. I think it's probably going to be wire mesh, not necessarily barbed wire. North Philly isn't that rough yet. And left field you're 400 feet away, center field 420, and right field you're 290. So they're butting Broad Street and Lehigh Avenues and left, center, and right fields. And then on the other side you have some train tracks. So it's sandwiched in here. And this ballpark serves as their home until you mentioned 1894, when it goes up in smoke prior to a game against Boston.
So the place reopens, or a stadium, this mysterious new stadium that has the same name, reopens in 1895. And from what I read, the response from the public was, again, which was funny to read at this point in time, but ecstatic. Everyone was nuts about this place. They loved it. I don't know if it was just like, oh, our home has been rebuilt, like we can go back to the real Phillies ballpark. But there was a ton of enthusiasm, and it's funny to see such positive accounts, because you can find such many more negative and like pretty candid opinions from this era, but then there's a series of promising teams, and then this ballpark reopens, and everyone was just like gushing over the Phillies. It's interesting to go through their history. You find these like waves of bad times followed by like sudden there was like a spasm of popularity because maybe they got a good team or something happened, and in this case, it was interesting to see this ballpark opened, and everybody seemed to be very excited.
Yeah, it's the 1895 ballpark is a marvel. It's a technological marvel. They invested a lot of money in the first Philadelphia ballpark, and as you mentioned, the fire cost them $70,000, and it was only insured for $25,000. So typical Phillies, that wasn't so smart. So they decided to build something fireproof, something that's going to stand the test of time, and they do that in a way. The only wood in the ballpark that's built in 1895 is the seats and some of the walkways. Everything else is concrete, brick, iron, and steel even. And this new ballpark also utilized a cantilever designed pavilion. So part of the problem with old ballparks, and you can go up to Fenway and experience this for yourself, you could sit behind a post and you can't see the game. So they knew that was a problem in 1894-95. They use a cantilever design which allows them to move the posts further back and to remove them from sight view inside the pavilion itself. So everybody has an unobstructed view of the action, which is pretty cool. Something else that takes place here, they move the diamond back towards home plate a little bit. And that's a John Rogers decision. The problem was with the way the original bleachers existed, they kind of flanked in, so they didn't just follow the baselines, they curved in a little bit. And that was so the people in the bleachers, the people with the 25-cent tickets, could see all of the action. They didn't have to crane their necks. But with the way that Rogers decided to move the diamond back in 95, these people couldn't see the game anymore. So eventually that also gets moved. And the walls on the outside of the ballpark, the outfield walls, also changed quite a bit too.
It's great that the Phillies were like, we're going to rebuild this ballpark and reopen it. And you know what? This is going to be the stadium of the future. You know how you're going to know that? We're not going to build it out of a material that burns. Less wood.
Neat.
Okay, so yep. Innovative. Also, you will probably be able to see the game if you come into the stadium and sit down. Like, you will not have your view blocked by anything. Like, how about that for innovation, right?
They
everyone?
Really put on their thinking caps.
You're welcome, Philadelphia.
Yeah.
I read was there a bike track at this ballpark, and the Phillies encouraged fans to ride their bikes to the stadium in an early version of the Red Goes Green initiative, I would imagine.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, there is a bicycle track at the 1887 ballpark. And the whole idea here is they want to not just use it for baseball. They want it to be rented out for a lot of different things. So bicycle races are really popular at the time. It's got a 15-foot wide bicycle track, which effectively would be like a warning track, and it's made out of the same material that the pitcher's points are made out of. It's not a mound quite yet. But if you read the description, this is an aside, if you read the description of the material, it mentions that the pitcher's point, the pitcher's box, is raised a little bit to allow for drainage. This is the BS excuse they used for trying to use geometry, and they figured out that pitchers can throw harder when they go downhill. But I digress. Yeah, so they do have a bicycle track there. And yeah, it's I think it comes back in 95 for a little bit, and I think it's even banked in 1895. But yeah, some things definitely change. The structure in 95 is, as I mentioned, built out of steel and iron and brick, and the aesthetics are different too. Whereas the 87 ballpark, it's more of a Victorian style, and it jumps out at you as that too. This 95 ballpark kind of reminds you of like one of those old Philadelphia prisons, whether it's Eastern State or Mayo Mensing, right? It's kind of got this castle-like aesthetic to it. They've got large turrets on the ends of the pavilion that are made out of brick, and then a huge central turret that's kind of like octagonal in the center, and
guards with rifles up in the towers.
For years later, people knew it was like a prison experience to watch the Phillies. They blessed us with a fantastic ballpark, but not a good team.
You can't have them both, Matt. Don't get greedy. You either get a new ballpark and 20 years of horrible baseball, or you have to play on ashes and be kind of okay.
Right. Welcome to being a Pittsburgh Pirates fan.
Well, as someone who has done a ton of research and reading and writing and looking into Phillies ballparks of the past, where does the 1895 rebuild that we're speaking about so flatteringly rank among Phillies ballparks in history?
That's a great question. I think top notch is Shibe Park Connie Mack Stadium, and I think you have to put Citizens Bank Park up there next.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a fan of the Vet. There's a lot of memories that people have tied to the Vet. Those are two different things. When we're talking architecturally, baseball, to quote Dick Allen, if it's not played on grass, if a horse can't eat it, I don't want to play on it. That kind of thing. Or as Tug McGraw said, if you can't smoke it, why play on it? Something like that. So I'm not going to put the Vet up there, but I would put Philadelphia ballparks 1 and 2 in this second or in this third and fourth category. I'd probably put the 87 one there first, simply because I like the aesthetics a little bit more. The architect, John J. Deary, like I mentioned, he designed this one. Boston's Triumvirs, the three owners up there, they decided they liked it so much that they contracted Deary to build the South End grounds. And that's probably and arguably the most beautiful 19th century ballpark ever constructed. Also went up in flames in 1894.
Like I said, it happens a lot.
It happens a lot. Yeah. And if you want to see something really funny, look at how many home runs the Boston team hits at Congress Street grounds, which was like a Little League field. But I digress. And then Deary also designs Polo Grounds number 3. So there was a fire, I think in 1903 or 1911, something like that. He designed the ballpark that burned down then. So the one we're familiar with the the long center field dimensions and the short power alleys and stuff like that, that's the one that's after that, but he designed the one after 1890.
Kind of makes it sound like he designed it to burn down. Like as part of the blueprints, it was like, this stadium will self-destruct at this time.
The best part about him is nobody knows anything about him after that. So he might have burned his own records for all we know.
See, what did we learn here today? About the cleansing power of fire.
Right. That's it.
That is a big place in Phillies history. Absolutely. Well, the rebuilt home of the Phillies received lavish praise, saw some decent teams, and then, of course, part of it collapsed in 1903, killing 12 people.
Yep.
The Phillies also, of course, denied responsibility. But that's a story for another time. And until then, Matt Albertson, thank you for joining us on Hittin' Season.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, so great conversation there, Justin, with Matt Albertson. And as we finish up the podcast here, it's time to turn it over for some final thoughts. Liz, any final thoughts from you?
The Baseball Research Journal, the fall 2025 edition, will be hitting mailboxes in the next couple of weeks. If you'd like to become a member of SABR and get 2 free issues a year, you can go to sabr.org/join. Please come join us at the Society for American Baseball Research.
All right, and Justin, author of Summer of the Cheap Wieners, coming soon to bookstores in February. Any final thoughts from you?
Was it the GM meetings last year where they all got explosive stomach viruses and they had to call it early? Or was that the winter meetings?
I don't know, actually. I don't remember that.
I can't remember
We're gonna
either.
have to find that one
But
out.
that was, I was like, wow, has it been a year since then? Because the GM meetings are happening very soon. But also happening very soon, the Arizona Fall League Championship will be on Saturday, November 15th. As it stands right now, no Phillies prospect is really a standout, let's say. But the team they play for, the surprise Saguaros, they are the number 2 seed in the postseason. So they are currently waiting. They have a bye, and they are currently waiting. We all know what a number 2 seed with a bye. That's just a ticket to
glide
success
path to
in the
victory.
postseason. So yeah, nothing to worry about there. I'll be talking to Phillies prospect evaluator Matt Winkelman for next week's episode. We're going to wrap up the AFL, talk about what the Phillies farmhands did get up to while they were out there, and what to expect from the Phillies farm system up ahead in 2026.
All right. Well, that is going to do it for this edition of Hittin' Season. Folks, want to make sure that you check out this podcast on our YouTube channel, WHYY's YouTube channel. You can subscribe by just going to WHYY on YouTube and hitting the subscribe button. It is self-explanatory, exactly how I described it. That's how you can get all of the Roundtable podcasts each and every week. And, of course, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever it is you get your podcasts. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. We'll talk to you next time right here on Hittin' Season.